Greetings and welcome to another episode of Q Points Podcast, the podcast dropping the needle on Black music history. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. What's happening, people?
And as I said, Jay Ray, this is the show, the podcast that is still dropping the needle on Black music history. We're not being canceled anytime soon. But Jay Ray, did you know what happened just recently?
What?
It was the anniversary of September 23rd, specifically 1967, the anniversary of Aretha Franklin's Natural Woman reached number 8 on the pop charts and number 2 on the R&B charts.
Wow. Here's what's crazy about that. One, Natural Woman still sounds fresh in 2024. Like, you could literally knock me over with a feather and be like, no, actually that song came out in 1967. Because that thing is just amazing. Of course, written by Carole King. Tapestry. Listen, if y'all ain't heard Tapestry, that might need to be a whole other show. Y'all need to go on over there and listen to Carole King's Tapestry, okay?
And I love that Carole King and Aretha Franklin were both received their Kennedy honors at the same time. So that, and it makes sense. The two went hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is an amazing feat. And especially at that time, you know, Black folks on the pop charts, we were well into the segregation of the charts by then. Mm-hmm. So Black folks, so it was always a Black artist goal to get to pop. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what, Jerry? Can you believe that this past August made 6 years that Aretha Franklin has left us?
Wow.
6 years since one of the most ornate funerals ever.
Wasn't it like 3 weeks? It was a very long...
I believe so. 3 weeks and at least 5 shoe changes.
Yes.
Because we were privy to her feet, just, you know, crisscross applesauce at the ankles, you know, very ladylike, very demure. And but it was a funeral fit for a queen, and yes, she definitely was the queen of soul.
Yeah. One of those things about being the queen of soul is there's always artists who want to work with artists like that, right? And one of those artists, of course, that absolutely loved his divas.
Speak on it.
Was one Luther Vandross, who is going to the Never Too Much documentary will be debuting in theaters on November 1st. I'm so happy to see this. I've heard a lot about it. You know, we can't wait to talk more about this particular documentary. But what's so dope is Luther and Aretha joined forces.
Listen, two great tastes that taste great together. And this episode of Q Points is definitely going to be about the moment when all the stars and aligns and Luther Vandross and Aretha Franklin joined forces to create Aretha's 28th studio album, Jump to It, released on July 26th, 1982. But J. Ray, it wasn't all peaches and cream, was it?
No. So this is interesting. So first of all, I remember Jump to It as a kid. First of all, Aretha Franklin for us as Gen Xers was just kind of always omnipresent as an artist.
For sure.
So there was never a point in time from when we were kids that we didn't hear the voice of Aretha Franklin. But what I did not realize was Aretha had went through this kind of, I'll call it the wilderness period, where after Sparkle, and this is interesting timing because, of course, we're in the middle of the disco era, right? And Aretha Franklin is the queen of soul, right? And between Sparkle and Jump to It, there were 5 albums. Those albums, from a pop perspective, were not hits. In fact, some of Aretha's critical challenges were of all of these records. Like, it is routinely, you look at the reviews for this, it's like 2 stars, 3 stars, right? Aretha was definitely in a rough patch of her career. And in 1980, she moved from Atlantic, where she had been forever, and actually went and released. You know where she went? She went over to Arista.
Arista.
You know, she went on over to Arista to Clive Davis. You know, Clive Davis loved him a diva.
Mm-hmm.
And so she went from Atlantic, where she had all of her huge hits, over to Arista. The first couple of records wasn't the thing, but I'm sure Clive was like, with a cigarette in hand, like hanging out of his mouth, was like, baby, we got to get you in the studio with Luther.
This kid, Luther, I hear a lot about this kid, Luther Vandross. You know, he's doing all the commercial jingles, and he's hot on the charts right now. I think it'd be real good for you. That's my very terrible Clive Davis impersonation. But yes, you're absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, so as you were speaking, the one thing that I do recall is that Aretha was a reluctant disco queen. You mentioned the disco era.
Yeah.
They proposed so many records for her. And she turned them down, and they were huge hits for other people.
Yeah.
And she turned them down because she was like, that ain't me.
Yeah. And, you know, I think the other interesting thing to that point is Aretha in the studio. So one of the things we there's a lot of rumors about how challenging it was, even Aretha doing Jump to It, because now Jump to It is like a boogie funk early 80s bop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Timeless, you know what I'm saying, from its whole thing. And I would have heard the song and been like, baby, this is it. This right here is it. And it wasn't, to your point, it was not peaches and cream to make Jump to It happen. But Luther, let me tell you something about Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross is going to get what he needs from the artists that he works with. And him and Marcus Miller co-wrote Jump to It. Real quick, I do want to mention, Sir Daniel, as we get into talking about this a little bit. So here's who's on this record, which is just a who's who. Mm-hmm. So you have Marcus Miller. Luther Vandross is, of course, singing backgrounds, doing keyboards, doing all the arrangements and production, da-da-da. George Duke is on this record. Of course, you got Paulette McWilliams is on here, the Four Tops, Levi Stubbs, and one Cissy Houston.
Cissy Houston
is, of course, up on the Aretha album.
No doubt. No doubt, because, well, you know, let's talk about Luther, because Luther is the epitome of a go-getter.
Yeah. Oh.
In this era, in his era, Luther was the epitome of a go-getter. From the very beginning, Luther, and you read about this in his biographies and whatnot, was, I think, obsessed is the word that people like to use about his craft.
Yeah.
I mean, completely focused on singing and emulating what he heard on records, and just knew what he wanted to become. And so in order to become something, you have to be it. You have to do it. And Luther made his name as a background vocalist for the likes of Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway, Todd Rundgren, Judy Collins, Chaka Khan, Bette Midler, Diana Ross, David Bowie, Benny King, Stevie Wonder, Donna Summer. And if you notice, there was no genre that he was not going to sing in.
Yeah.
Luther wanted to be a singer and also developed the knack for writing songs. Not just songs, but kids, listen to this. Luther wrote jingles. Mm-hmm. Now, back then, if you were a vocalist and a writer, you could do session work, and that's how you build up your repertoire and you build relationships. You do session work at all the different studios for every and anybody. But then he also had the opportunity to write jingles, for, I believe, for NBC back in 1977 to the early 80s for, check this out, J. Ray, Mountain Dew, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you know we love a good, back then, a good KFC jingle, and of course, Burger King and Juicy Fruit. So Luther is putting in work. I think is an understatement for what he was doing. He was so driven that he took every and any opportunity to thing, which he loved doing, and to work, be in the studio working. There's some people that thrive on that, and it's part of who they are. There are many artists that we hear are like that. Diana Ross was the same way. Love being in the studio, love doing session work, love being on stage. So much so that Luther's talents, now mind you, this is the early 80s. So at this point in 1980, he joins Change, or he's a part of Change, and he's singing The Glow of Love.
Oh my God.
Which is, I mean, you talk about a predecessor record. It's a taste of what's to come.
Ooh.
Because that song right there is so luscious. It's that groove and that joy that he took and gave to Aretha also and Jump to It. So, but before that, before we get too ahead of ourselves, J. Ray, can we talk about Never Too Much real quick? Never Too Much in 1981, his debut album.
Right.
So imagine that whole decade, you're putting in work, you're working with all these people, and your first debut record comes out, and it's Never Too Much, J. Ray. What is the grip that Never Too Much has on us 43 years later, J. Ray?
Never Too Much is a quintessential multi-generation record, because I am always flabbergasted when folks at all different ages begin singing that song together in unison. That song is a timeless groove. The lyrics, we talk about lyrics a lot on this show, but the lyrics of Never Too Much are so just like, no, I want to be in this. I want to experience this. And it's just timeless. I do want to make a note too. I think Luther learned a lot from that 70s period, because as we know, they re-released the band Luther's two albums that they had. And for a long time, those were just unavailable. And I think Luther took everything that he learned from that experience of being kind of leading this band, right, and channeling it into what we ultimately got as Never Too Much. And I truly believe that I can see Luther when he got the call of like, I'm going to give Aretha a Never Too Much. Like, I'm going to give whatever that should look like for Aretha. I'm going to give her that. And the result of that was we got Jump to It, which is a timeless groove from Aretha Franklin.
And gave her a hit record.
Yes.
Like, we're talking about a 6-year difference between albums, and this one charted
so this particular song, so the song Jump to It went to number 4 on the pop charts, number 24 on the pop charts, number 1 on the R&B charts, which were called the black charts back then, right?
Of course.
She got her a dance hit out of it as well. And this particular album gave her it was her first gold record since Sparkle.
See?
So this was a big deal,
huge deal. So Luther gained a friend in one of his divas. Aretha gained a friend, but as J. Ray mentioned earlier, it wasn't all peaches and cream in the studio. They bumped heads. There was fur coats flying. There was people leaving the studio yelling. There was yelling at each other. And, like only two Aries can. They bumped heads.
Yeah.
They bumped heads. But you know why they bumped heads? Because they both knew what they wanted. Luther is famously quoted as saying that when Aretha comes in the studio, he says, if she comes in your studio, you need to be ready. Matter of fact, you better have the tape rolling.
Hold on, the fingers got to be ready to hit.
Right, because any take that she does is going to be magic.
Right.
She's going to give you some type of magic, and so the two of them working together was bound to be magic, and they were probably just so impassioned about what they were doing, and they were probably just, you know how it is when you're arguing the same thing, both of y'all are saying the same thing, but you're so impassioned and wrapped up in your passion. I could just imagine like the cigarettes dangling, the cussing each other out, the air snatching at each other, and well, you ain't had no number one in 6 years. No. Oh yeah, well, who are you? I'm the queen. You know what I'm saying? I would have loved to have seen that, because I'm sure it was all kinds of drama going on. But J-Ray, you know what else I love about this album? So you mentioned who was on the album earlier. You mentioned Sissy. You mentioned Fonzie Thornton. Jump To It is a background vocalist dream team. Like, when I looked at the list of people that were collected to be on this background, like Paulette McWilliams, Tawatha Agee, like all of these people are such heavyweights, and I can only imagine like Luther just gathering the team. Luther was literally Captain America gathering the Avengers. Like, okay, Avengers, come on, let's get this together. Our sister Aretha needs a number one.
Our sister Aretha needs a number one.
I need everybody on deck right now, because we're about to go up against Thanos. And and it's so funny I say Thanos, because Luther Vandross was like Thanos when it came to accumulating his divas.
He loved him a diva.
I think that's one of the things that he and I have in common. We love ourselves some divas. Mine hip hop, his was definitely R&B, soul singers. But like during a New York Times interview, Luther spoke of when Jump To It came out, and he was talking to the New York Times about it. He was talking about a project that he was working on with Dionne Warwick, but then he alluded to the next diva that he wanted to work with. And it was Diana Ross.
Absolutely.
And at that time, people were taking digs at Diana for her vocals, but but Luther is famous for saying, there is underneath that icing, I know there's a serious cake. He was ready to dig in with Diana Ross, and he got the opportunity to do it.
He did.
He got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. So, during that period of time, so we actually had a conversation around Diana Ross in kind of the 1983 era, but Luther had the opportunity to do some work with Diana Ross. So this was on the Silk Electric album. So interestingly enough about the Silk Electric album, you get so Luther, like you said, he gathered his Avengers, and sidebar, the Silk Electric album is also the album that includes Muscles. If you go back and listen to our show, we talk a little bit about Michael Jackson and Muscles. Anyway, Sissy, Paulette, Tawatha, they're all with Luther on the Diana Ross record. And so he got the opportunity in that same era to really go and sit and create for one Diana Ross.
Is there a singer of today's crop, if Luther were alive today, is there a singer today that he would enjoy working with? Like, who do you think he would be obsessed with? Why you think? I can tell you who, off the top of my head, for me, is Jasmine Sullivan. I think he would be obsessed with Jasmine Sullivan.
I think Jasmine, of all of the kind of contemporary crop, I feel like they would have a good time together. I feel like Jasmine would have Luther doing runs and doing all types of stuff, and Luther would have Jasmine smoothing out that vocal and playing in some other registers.
And he would be pulling in her jazz abilities. I think he would really dig it out of her. I think he would also enjoy working with her.
And you know what? Not for nothing. I think Actually, I think all of the girls. I think a Coco Jones. I think he would get in the studio and definitely play around with Coco. So yeah, I think those three alone would be really interesting. And I would also love, in particular with her and Jasmine, also love to see the reverse of them kind of writing for and kind of producing a Luther. I feel like that would be such magic.
That would be magical. Taking their young sensibilities and working with him with his classical training and all that legendary stuff. You're absolutely right. Jerry, as we come to the end of this episode, what are you looking forward to the most? What would you like to learn from this Luther Vandross documentary that's coming out on November 1st in theaters? Never Too Much.
Luther, I would love for the documentary to just pull back the layers a bit. Luther was notoriously private about his personal life and like truly talking about like his drives and his passions in that way. So I would really just kind of like to get a glimpse of the man behind the music and also just kind of really understand what made him tick a little bit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What about you?
I'm looking forward to everything you just said, as well as a light bulb going off in some young person's head. I'm looking forward to his essence jumping onto somebody and reliving and us being revisited by that spirit. Somebody being completely enamored by his work ethic and his passion for music. And I'm looking forward to somebody up and coming, taking on and embodying that spirit of Luther Vandross and giving us pure magic in the music. That's what I'm looking forward to happening as a result of this documentary. Jerry, please tell the people how they can get more of these dope conversations, because if you're not checking in on Q Points, you're missing out.
Y'all, so definitely thank you all so much for tuning in. If you can see our faces, if you can hear our voices, go ahead and subscribe wherever you are. Follow us on social media everywhere at Q Points Pod. We would really appreciate that and keep the conversation going. Go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter. Visit our website at qpoints.com. Subscribe to our newsletter at qpoints.com, where you can also check out our magazine. You can also check out our blog. And if you love some fresh gear, you can also check out our store at store.qpoints.com. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all.
Thank you so much. As always, what I always say at the end of the show is, in this life, you have a choice. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
My name is J Ray, y'all.
And this has been Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll see you on the next go around. Peace.
Peace.